get home. The door closes behind you, and before you even take off your shoes, your whole body exhales. Not because anything terrible happened. Nobody yelled at you. Nobody hurt you. Nobody was even particularly unkind. You were just around people. Too many voices, too many moods, too many invisible demands. And now that you're finally home, it feels like your nervous system can put its bags down. If that sounds like you, let me tell you something that perhaps no one told you when you were younger. There is nothing wrong with you. You are not broken because you enjoy being alone. You are not cold because you need quiet. And you are not unhealthy because peace feels better to you than noise. A lot of people hear the word alone and immediately think of loneliness. But those two things are not the same. For some people, solitude is not emptiness. It is recovery. It is relief. It is the first honest breath they've taken all day. And if you've spent years trying to explain that to people who just don't understand, this message is for you. Because some people are energized by crowds, chatter, activity, and constant connection, but others are drained by it, deeply drained. Not because they dislike people, not because they can't socialize, but because being around others requires more from them than most people will ever realize. They notice everything. The tone in someone's voice, the smile that doesn't reach the eyes, the tension in a room before anyone even says a word, the subtle pressure to respond, perform, reassure, engage. And when you are built that way, being around people is not a simple activity. It is processing, it is filtering, it is emotional labor. That is why you can spend time with people you genuinely love and still come home completely worn out. And that part is important, because maybe you do love your family. Maybe you love your friends. Maybe you enjoy a nice dinner, a warm visit, a conversation that means something. But even then, you can only take it in small doses, and there is no shame in that. Some people hear, "I need time alone," and interpret it as rejection. But often, it is not rejection at all. It is regulation. You're not saying, "I don't love you." You're saying, "I need quiet to come back to myself." That is a very different thing. Many people, especially thoughtful and sensitive people, carry guilt around this. They wonder, why do I need space when other people seem to need more people? Why do I feel relief when plans get cancelled? Why do I enjoy seeing loved ones but still look forward to the moment I can close the front door again? Because your system restores differently. Some people recharge socially. Some people recharge privately. Some people feel alive at the party. Others feel alive when the party is over. The dishes are done, the lights are low, and they can sit in silence with their own thoughts. And that silence doesn't scare them. In fact, for many people like you, silence is where life finally becomes clear. Not small talk, not noise, not forced conversation that goes nowhere. Because that may be one of the most exhausting things of all, shallow interaction. You may have noticed this about yourself years ago. You can handle depth. You can handle sincerity. You can handle meaningful conversation, honesty, warmth, even vulnerability. But small talk, pointless chatter, being trapped in hollow conversation just to fill space, that can drain you faster than almost anything. Because your mind is not hungry for more words. It is hungry for what is real. You do not want 20 conversations that say nothing. You would rather have one moment of truth, one quiet cup of coffee, one honest friend, one peaceful afternoon, one home that feels safe. And that word matters too. Safe. For many people, home is not just where they live. It is where they return to themselves. Home is where the noise stops, where the mask comes off, where no one is pulling at their energy, where they can move at their own pace, think their own thoughts, and hear their own inner voice again. For some, it is a house shared only with a spouse who understands them. For others, it is an apartment with 2 cats. For others, it is a porch, a garden, a cup of tea, a dog asleep nearby, and the deep comfort of knowing they don't have to explain themselves to anyone. And if you are older, you may feel this more strongly than ever. Because age has a way of revealing what was true all along. Many people spend their younger years trying to fit into a world that rewards the loud, the social, the constantly available. They learn to smile on cue, to answer when they would rather stay quiet, to show up when they would rather stay home, to act more outgoing than they really feel. And then one day, usually later in life, they get tired of pretending. They realize they were never wrong, just different. They stop apologizing for enjoying their own company. They stop forcing themselves into noisy places that leave them depleted. They stop measuring the health of their life by how many people are in it. And that can feel like freedom, not isolation. Freedom. Freedom to go to the store early and come home before the crowds. Freedom to keep a small circle instead of performing for a large one. Freedom to spend a Saturday in peace without feeling like something is missing. Freedom to say no without writing a long explanation. Freedom to choose depth over quantity, peace over performance, quiet over chaos. And here is something beautiful that not everyone understands. A quiet life is not an empty life. For many people, solitude is full of thought, full of reflection, full of prayer, full of memory, full of creativity, full of little rituals that make a life feel rich and deeply lived. There are people who feel closest to God when they are alone. People who paint more, think better, rest deeper, and breathe easier when nobody is asking anything from them. People who do not feel lonely in silence because silence is not absence to them. It is presence. It is where they feel grounded. It is where they hear their own wisdom again. It is where the soul unclenches. But now we need to say something honest. Because not all solitude comes from the same place. Sometimes being alone is a healthy preference. And sometimes it becomes a shield. Sometimes you choose quiet because it restores you. And sometimes you hide in quiet because the world has become too painful, too disappointing, or too overwhelming. Sometimes it is both, and there is no need for shame in that either. You do not need to judge yourself for needing protection, but it is worth asking gently. When I am alone, do I feel peaceful, or just safer? Do I feel restored or cut off? Do I return to people when I'm ready? Or am I disappearing from life because connection feels too costly? That is not a question to accuse yourself with. It is a question to care for yourself with. Because healthy solitude brings you back to yourself. It does not erase you. And once you understand that, something changes. You stop calling your needs a flaw. You stop apologizing for your wiring. You stop letting louder people define what a healthy life is supposed to look like. You begin to protect your peace. And sometimes that protection sounds like this. I love you, but I need some quiet tonight. I'm okay. I'm just tired from being around a lot of people. I had a lovely time. I just need to recharge. I'm not upset. I'm resetting. That language matters. Because many people were never taught how to explain their inner life. They only learned how to hide it, defend it, or feel guilty for it. But there is another way, a calmer way, a kinder way, a more honest way. A way that says, I do not need to become more like everyone else to be whole. Maybe that is what you are finally learning now. Maybe after all these years, you are realizing that your peace is not something to apologize for. Maybe you do not need a larger circle. Maybe you need a truer one. Maybe you do not need more stimulation. Maybe you need less. Maybe you do not need to be fixed. Maybe you need to be understood. And maybe the reason this hits so deeply is because some part of you has always known it. You were never empty because you liked your own company. You were never wrong because crowds exhausted you. You were never strange because silence felt good to you. You are simply trying to live in a world that often mistakes loudness for health and constant socializing for happiness. But peace has its own intelligence, and those who understand it know something precious. There is a difference between being alone and being abandoned. There is a difference between quiet and emptiness. There is a difference between a small life and a peaceful life. If your home feels like sanctuary, honor that. If your spirit softens in silence, honor that. If being by yourself helps you think clearly, breathe deeply, and feel whole again, honor that. Because there is nothing weak about needing peace. There is nothing selfish about protecting your energy. And there is certainly nothing broken about preferring a quiet life that feels real. So if you've spent years believing that this part of you needed to be corrected, let today be the day you put that burden down. You are not too quiet. You are not too much. You are not antisocial because you don't need constant company. You are not lonely just because you enjoy your own presence. You may simply be one of those people whose soul comes back to life in stillness. And that is not a defect. That is your design.